We got 4 late round sleeper wide receivers we're targeting in 2021. Zach, who's your first one?
Yeah, my first one is Antonio Brown, AB.
Oh, boy.
I know it's this is probably going to throw some people off. Let's look at 2020. Last year, AB finished as the wide receiver 65 in fantasy. Yes, you heard that right. Wide receiver 65. Okay. I know that's not sexy, but let me tell you why this is okay. He only played 8 games. Okay. In those 8 games, he had 45 receptions, 483 yards, and 4 touchdowns. If you scale that out to a 16 game season, he would have finished with 90 receptions, just under 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And he would have finished as the wide receiver 16 in all of fantasy football. Again, we are using PPR format when we talk about where people are finishing. Wide receiver 16, if you play the entire year and we scaled that out to a 16 game season. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, wasn't Godwin injured for a little bit? Wouldn't that have helped Antonio Brown? Well, when Godwin came back from his injury is the same day, the same week that Antonio Brown came off of his suspension, that 8-week suspension that he had.
Right.
So Antonio Brown, Godwin, and Mike Evans were all on the field together when Antonio Brown was putting up these kind of numbers.
Correct.
We talk about we talk about running back handcuffs all the time, Badake. You know the word handcuff. Everyone knows what it means.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who's the running back on that team? How can you secure, the services of that running back if the star was to go down?
Right.
Why don't we ever talk about wide receiver handcuffs? Because I honestly feel like there are some offenses where if a wide receiver goes down, like an important wide receiver, then there's other wide receivers that could step into a massive workload. And when I look at around the league, I think the Bucs have one of the best offenses, obviously, in the NFL.
Wow.
This year, they will still have one of the best offenses in the NFL. To me, AB might be the most valuable wide receiver handcuff this year. If Mike Evans goes down or Chris Godwin goes down, it just takes one of them to go down, and he could be a top 20 guy every week. Keep in mind, the numbers that I just told you, he put up all those numbers with those guys anyway.
Yeah.
So Antonio Brown's a guy I think we're overlooking because of how much depth is already at that position. But it's not like this team is going to struggle to score. I'm really excited about Antonio Brown's upside this year, and I'm actually targeting him late in every draft. It's crazy that I'm saying that, but Antonio Brown's actually a guy I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah, it is a bit interesting. It's hard to wrap my head around AB. It's hard to wrap my head around, this Bucs offense and what that's going to look like. Everyone's talking about these young wide receivers that are emerging that they just drafted in this draft. And is AB really going to be that guy? But who knows?
Are you talking about Jalen Darden specifically? Yeah, I think he's more of a project guy, though. You're here to win Super Bowls right now.
Yeah.
This is the time of the year where every team loves their rookie. Every team's coming out of camp saying, oh my God, our rookie's amazing. Of course you're saying that, bro. He hasn't even hit the field yet. This team is here to win Super Bowls. Antonio Brown is the wide receiver 3 on this team. There's no question about that to me. So I see massive upside. Who's your first wide receiver sleeper for this year that you're targeting, Badake?
Darnell Mooney. Okay, I love Darnell Mooney. I believe he's a tremendous talent. I believe in his second year, we see a potential for a breakout year. And
okay,
there was a lot of speculation going into last year, who was a quarterback, what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. But what do we know? They drafted Justin Fields. He's on his center. What happened with his last quarterbacks? Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky. If you look at their QBR rating for last year, you know who had one of the worst QBR ratings last year? The second worst was Nick Foles.
I assume it was one of those guys.
Yeah, it was Nick Foles. And Mitch Trubisky had the 13 worst QBR rating, which means that they didn't complete their passes. And what do we know about Justin Fields? He is one of the most accurate passers coming out of this draft. Okay?
Yeah.
So in my thought process here is like, whoa, accurate passes. That means they have to be fed. Obviously, Allen Robinson, you're probably saying, well, what about Allen Robinson? You think that he is going to lose touches? I don't think so. but I think Darnell Mooney is going to be coming into this team in his second year and getting more touches. He was already on the field last year, 76% of snaps. I expect that to increase.
That's what you want.
Yeah, it's actually what you want. I expect that to increase with a more accurate quarterback in Justin Fields, which I believe he is. Either he starts in the beginning, week 1, or he starts week 5 to 6, which then means Darnell Mooney is even more valuable. He probably goes undrafted, whatever the case may be. But I believe I've been getting him 10th. You know, he goes from, he kind of ranges sometimes. Sometimes he jumps around. You know, I seen him go as early as 7. I think that's too early. I seen him go as late as the very last pick. So,
yeah.
Well, I like Darnell Mooney.
These are all sleeper guys that we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's no one that we're talking about that you're going to have to take too early, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's why they become a value, because of their ADP. I like Darnell Mooney. I don't think there's any reason to be worried about Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's going to get his. It's not like there's too many mouths to feed in this offense.
Exactly. You know, that's another thing. Who else is there? Cole Kmet, maybe Monty, and another wide receiver, a Damari Bird, but we haven't really seen much of him.
Yeah.
Anthony Miller, we haven't really seen much of him. You know, it's Mooney or A-Rob, in my opinion.
I like the take. So with this take, you're assuming that Justin Fields is going to be the starter.
Absolutely.
By week 5 at max.
At max is week 5. If he doesn't start at the beginning of the year, Andy Dalton doesn't succeed, Justin Fields comes in super accurate.
Okay. I like it. We're both high on Justin Fields, so that makes sense. My second wide receiver I'm targeting as a sleeper this year is Henry Ruggs, a.k.a. Henry Huggs, as Badake named him last year. When we talk about year 2 potential breakouts, I like Mooney, but man, I just feel like there's more upside here with Henry Ruggs. I'm not comparing them, but when I look at year 2 upsides, Henry Ruggs is a guy that no one is talking about.
Okay.
Tell me why in every mock draft, PPR redraft mock draft this year, we're seeing all of this year's rookies go ahead of last year's first overall wide receiver in the draft, right? We quickly forget that the Raiders, whether they make the right decisions or not, they had their shot at any wide receiver. They chose Henry Ruggs. Now, look, I know there's a narrative. The Raiders just don't know how to develop talent. Right. And that might be true, but I still believe Henry Ruggs himself is very talented.
Okay.
I think hopefully this year, John Gruden's going to figure out a way to get Henry Ruggs more involved in this offense. You don't have to be worried about any wide receiver they drafted this year because they didn't draft anyone, at least no one important. You don't have to worry about the wide receiver they signed in the offseason because the only wide receiver they signed in the offseason was John Brown.
Okay.
It wasn't Juju like everyone thought it could be. John Brown was the guy. So when you have opportunity plus high draft capital, I really feel like there's an opportunity for Henry Ruggs here to break out. He's got the Tyreek Hill speed. Now, can you utilize him within the offense? Can you open up your playbook and say, here are 10 plays we're going to call for Henry Ruggs. He can change the game for us. Personally, I feel like there could be big targets coming his way. And this value, this take is really baked into his ADP. I looked back at where he went off the board in our recent mock drafts with the community. The last PPR mock draft he went, wide receiver 63.
Sheesh.
That was my last pick. The last pick of my draft.
Okay.
The mock before that, he was undrafted. The mock before that, wide receiver 55. Before that, wide receiver 62. You can really get Henry Ruggs anywhere from rounds 11 to maybe the last round of your draft, depending on how many roster spots you have. I feel like it's a no risk, high reward scenario. We could easily see Henry Ruggs finish this year with 8 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. I really think that's a possibility in this offense. There's so many targets to go around.
Look, and you're not wrong. There are a lot of targets. Am I excited for Derek Carr? He has improved in the past couple of years, in a very small margin. So I do see a potential upside for Henry Ruggs here. Am I excited? I mean, I think it's great value. Late rounds.
Here's the thing. Derek Carr's not the issue. Derek Carr's not the issue.
What's the issue?
It's the coaching.
It's
the coaching and the defense. If we're going to get into the Raiders, it's coaching, defense, and it's how they've scouted.
Yeah,
they have scouted terribly throughout drafts.
Was it Mike McCoy?
Shout out to Mike Mike Mayock.
Mike Mayock. Wow, I completely butchered that.
Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy. Yeah, Mike Mayock. I mean, Alex Leatherwood in the first. We're excited about that. Not really.
Not.
All right.
Who's your last wide receiver you're targeting as a sleeper?
Look, this is a deep sleeper for me. And we all seen the reports in the offseason that this team is going to open up their playbook and open up their passing playbook specifically more coming into the 2021 season. And it's Marquise Hollywood Brown. With the addition of Rashad Bateman, you know, I believe I can see a lot more opportunity coming to Hollywood in 2021.
Okay.
And that sounds interesting. So they draft Rashad Bateman, a better wide receiver than Hollywood Brown. And you're saying Marquise is going to have more targets or more upside. Look, it's hard to kind of project it right now, but if I had to project it, just the way it's going to be lined up, because remember, they did sign Sammy Watkins. So my projection is that the focus switches to Rashad Bateman. Sammy Watkins, you're going to see more playing time where, you know, Bateman's on the left, Watkins is on the right, and Hollywood goes in the slot. Okay?
Yeah.
So I believe that Hollywood is going to go in the slot, and he's going to get a great increase of targets coming his way.
Yeah.
So there's a potential to be a low-end wide receiver 2, a high-end wide receiver 3 here with, you know, Hollywood Brown coming in. And look at all the weapons now. You have Lamar, you have J.K. Dobbins. You know, they have to stack the box. You have to figure out something for Lamar and J.K. So someone's going to be open.
The Ravens have made a weakness a real strength now with the Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, Devin Duvernay.
Yeah.
So that was what I was going to bring up, though, is Devin Duvernay.
So, and you're right. And
I don't know. I don't know that I feel like Bateman's the only guy I want, personally.
Oh, you're right. And Bateman is the only guy I want. But I'm willing to take a chance on Marquise in the late rounds. Devin Duvernay, you know, maybe he does fill in for Sammy. He's technically the bigger wide receiver. I think Marquise is 5'9". Devin Duvernay is 5'10". Big whoop. But Marquise is a smaller, faster slot built type of guy. So, but is he known to play that though? No, his first year coming out, he was the X receiver. He was the biggest guy on the team, going down the field, making those long.
Which is obviously not something he was
successful
that he's built to do. Yeah,
exactly.
It's obviously not something that he's good at.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.